to introduce our next speaker, who is Rabbi Barry Lutz. And Barry has served the Jewish community as an educator and a rabbi for over 40 years. During that time, he has served as Director of Education, Senior Rabbi, and most recently as Interim Rabbi in communities around the Southland, including a semester as the 5th and 6th grade Judaica teacher at VBS Day School. Most recently, he was blessed to serve in an interim capacity at the Los Angeles Jewish Health. Rabbi Lutz is grateful for the 40-plus years of love and support of his wife, Debbie. He is the father to Rabbi Adam Lutz and his wife, Cantor Emma Lutz of Stephen Wise, Jeremy, Emily, and husband, Gabby, and grandfather of Ruby, Gwen, and 8-week-old Theo. So, Rabbi, I hand the audience over to you. Thank you.
There you go. Okay. Good morning. So I have to start with my AI story, which is that my AI knows that I'm a rabbi. So no matter what question I ask it, for instance, I was looking for some suggestions. I have a fountain in my backyard, and it's always filling up with algae. So I was looking for suggestions. So I asked AI for suggestions to get rid of the algae in my fountain, and it gave me suggestions. And at the end, it said, "Would you like a prayer for when you put the anti-algae stuff in your fountain?" So anytime I ask AI a question, it says, "Would you like a prayer for that?" So, yeah, it's not Denise, but so thank you. That was a great presentation. I'm really excited to be here. I was asked by Bill Green to come and share some stuff that I had been working on and doing with LA Jewish Health. This is part of a series of things about a curriculum about the intersection of the American Jewish community and Jewish music that was written for UCLA and for the Lowell Milken Foundation several years ago. And what I have this morning is 1 hour of about a 6.5-hour presentation about Jewish music and social justice. So I've tried to pare down really quickly into a presentation just about one aspect of Jewish music, the American Jewish experience, and social justice, particularly focusing this morning on the civil rights movement, the 1960s. Any of you involved in the civil rights movement in the 1960s? Great. So we will move quickly, maybe. Let's see if I can get my slides to move. There we go. All right. So we're going to kind of look at quickly at this question: what factors and events have helped propel a concern for dignity and civil rights within the American Jewish community, and what factors might have operated against this concern as well. As we go along, we're going to hear some music. Hopefully that will work. You'll be able to hear everything. We're going to start with, let me just do this. We're going to have to toggle back and forth. So we begin with sort of the question of where this impulse for social justice comes from. So we're going to begin with a song that many of you may know by Rabbi Menachem Creditor, called Olam Chesed Yebaneh, Let a World of Loving Kindness Be Built. It comes from Psalms, Psalm 89. And the Hebrew phrase is passive, but the English, as you'll hear, as sung by not only by Menachem Creditor and Neshama Karlbach and several cantors, asks the question in the active sense. It sort of says, I will, you will, we will, God will, so not in the passive. And as you listen to the song, you might think about, where does this impulse for social justice for us come from? So let's just listen here real quick. Let me get to, there we go.
Build this world from love.
Oh, why are we not seeing the video? That's okay. Do you know this song? No? Oh, there they are. I'm going to stop it just because we'll make sure we have enough time. You get the idea there of the song, which is this impulse towards justice. Maybe we'll just leave it like this so we can easily move back and forth between the slides. So where does it come from, this idea of our concern for justice in the world? There's probably not one definitive answer in Judaism. There are many texts that we could refer to, but there is this aspiration for justice in the world. Of course, in the book of Deuteronomy, which we read towards the high holidays, we have a line that says, Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. Justice, justice you shall pursue. Justice is seen as not something that we wait for, but something that we have to chase after. And we do it, tzedek, tzedek, right? We say it twice, that emphasis on the word tzedek. It can be emphasis, it can be that it is not something that we can do alone, but that we have to do together, tzedek, tzedek. It's also interpreted as meaning not only must you get to the end justly, get to justice at the end, but the way you get there has to be just also. That the means of getting to the end is just as important as the end itself. Probably most powerfully, the prophets are full of voices about justice, but most powerfully are these words. Know that from Isaiah, from the prophet Isaiah, from Isaiah 58, who says, "Know this is the fast that I desire. Unlock the fetters of wickedness, untie the cords of injustice, set the oppressed free. Break off every yoke. This is the fast I desire. Share your bread with the hungry. Take the poor into your homes. Clothe the naked. Don't ignore others. We'll just stop with that first paragraph. Where does this come from? When do we hear these words? Yeah, I heard somebody say it. On Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur morning. This is the Haftarah. We read on Yom Kippur morning. So it's an interesting text, very powerful text. It comes on Yom Kippur when we're about 2/3 of the way through that day, and it asserts that Yom Kippur is a day about social justice. It is a day for committing ourselves to ending oppression, to ending hunger, to ending homelessness and poverty. And we're asked on Yom Kippur to think about this. Isaiah comes to us on this on Yom Kippur morning and basically says, why are you here? What are you doing here? If not for this purpose. If what you do here in the sanctuary on Yom Kippur morning, on Yom Kippur day, does not change who you are when you walk out the doors, then what are you doing here? It's literally the words Isaiah says. And we're asked to think about justice just at that moment when we're kind of starting to feel the pangs of our own deprivation on that day. Just when we're starting to get hungry, Isaiah comes to us and says, what is this day all about? So we start with Isaiah's words for a particular reason as related to the civil rights movement. After the death of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Dave Brubeck wrote a cantata called The Gates of Justice. Is anybody familiar? And he excerpts these exact words from Isaiah 58, employing the same 4 verses of the Haftarah we just discussed. So we're going to ask you to listen to it in a moment and think about how he uses these words to respond to that moment, to the assassination of Dr. King, the assassination of Robert Kennedy, his response to that. I just want to say a word about Dave Brubeck. I actually thought he was Jewish. I did not know that he was not Jewish, actually. He was born here in Concord, California in 1920, and he always referenced 3 influential Jewish mentors, his Jewish teachers. One was Irving Goldman, who was a philosopher, a composer, Darius Milhaud, who was responsible for his getting involved in jazz and suggested that he go into jazz. And he named his first son after him, Darius. And his 3rd Jewish mentor, he said, was Jesus. So he wrote this called The Gates of Justice. It was commissioned by the Union of American Hebrew Congregations, the Reform movement, now known as the Union for Reform Judaism, following, as I said, the assassination of Dr. King. Brubeck himself was a very important figure in religious and social advocacy. He's committed to social justice work. As I said, he was born a Protestant, became Catholic in his life, and wrote this piece. So I want you to listen to it. This is called, is this piece from The Gates of Justice that uses the texts. I'm just going to leave, you'll see this text right here. Hopefully it'll stay here. As you see, it is the same text. This is just a piece of the cantata. But listen to the words. Hopefully it will work. Maybe it won't. Technology. I think I have to go into full screen mode to get the technology to work. Here we go. But just listen to it here. Okay. YouTube's winding up. There we go. This is Cantor Alberto Mizrahi, by the way, if any of you know his voice. Yeah, that's Dave Brubeck. Yeah. Whoops, hang on. Sorry, let me turn it off or it's going to go on to the next thing. We'll get the next YouTube.
At Ralph's farm.
Yes. No, we don't care about Ralph's. All right. What's your reaction? Other than we just heard one reaction. That's Dave Brubeck. By the way, stop. YouTube, please. All right. There we go. Brubeck, first of all, really viewed the historical experiences of Jews and African Americans as parallel narratives of suffering and oppression, and he used his music to try to build bridges between the African American, between the Black and the Jewish communities. So what are your thoughts? These are Isaiah's words after M.L. King's assassination, and he was trying to express I guess in some sense, this was his musical response to that. Any thoughts, besides that that's Dave Brubeck? How does he use his music to do that? Any thoughts about what you heard? Not uplifting. It's there's an urgency to it, right? There is an urgency to it. It's like open the gates, 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 right? There are these questions that Isaiah asks, that Brubeck kind of asks in a way that sort of says, what is going on? Why are we here? What is this about? In that response as well. Any other thoughts about this piece of music? So we're going to then move on to music and protest. As I said, we're going to look particularly at the civil rights movement, but you'll see as we go through the slides here, the first thing I'm going to skip is the women's suffrage movement and the role of Jewish music in women's suffrage. But we're going to skip over that and look at the March on Washington, which happened, of course, in 1963. Anybody there? Just want to check. I was 7. But I actually remember it quite well, actually. The march happened, actually, interestingly enough, occurred 50 years after the suffrage movement, which was in 1963, and this was on the 100th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation. And the event began, planning for the event began in March of 1963. Sorry, let me just, my pages here. And it gained steam, really gained steam after May 3rd, when Birmingham Segregationist Commissioner of Public Safety, Bull Connor, unleashed high-powered, some of you may remember this, fire hoses on a children's march in Birmingham, and German Shepherds as well. And Americans across the nation watched on television as all of this happened, the images of mayhem on their television screens. And really propelled the march, the August of 63 march forward. Included among the planners was a guy by the name of Arnie Aronson. Is anybody familiar with Arnie Aronson? Arnie Aronson was one of the Jewish co-founders of the Leadership Conference on Civil Rights in 1950, and he was the executive director of the Leadership Conference on Civil Rights until 1980. He helped coordinate lobbying campaigns for the 1957 Civil Rights Act, the 1964 Civil Rights Act, the 1965 Voting Rights Act, and the 1968 Fair Housing Act. Many of these, by the way, were partially drafted in the basement of what is now the Religious Action Center of the Reform Movement, the Reform Movement's political lobby in Washington, D.C., where I had the privilege for about 17 years of taking 10th and 11th graders to visit and to lobby. In 1998, Arnie Aronson was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. So what were the goals of the march, the 63 march? They were these. And as we look at them, you might think about, so how are we doing? Have we accomplished any? Where are we at with a lot of these things now? Some have we accomplished? Have we not? Are we still on the road? What's happening? But these were the goals of the march: to end segregated public accommodations, to protect the right to vote, to address violations of constitutional rights, to desegregate all public schools, to train and place unemployed workers, and to bar discrimination in employment. 50%. I just heard 50%. Okay. I'm looking for the page I need. There we go. So the most famous piece, certainly the one I remember, actually I sort of attribute a lot of my becoming a rabbi to M.L. King's speech on this day. Actually, I was only 10 at the time, but I could repeat words from his speech for the rest of my life. It had a very powerful impact on me, and of course is the most famous piece of that march. But as you may or may not know, before he spoke, he was preceded by Rabbi Yocham Prince. Is anybody familiar with Rabbi Prince? Rabbi Prince was an anti-Nazi dissident who had been expelled from Germany. He was ordained in 1925 as the youngest rabbi in Berlin. He was a vociferous opponent of Nazism and was expelled from Germany, thank God for that, in 1937, and came to the United States, was brought to the United States by Stephen S. Wise, Rabbi Stephen S. Wise, who brought many of those rabbis that came from Germany at that time. Rabbi Prince served as rabbi of Temple B'nai Abraham in Newark, New Jersey from 1939 until his retirement in 1977. And he served as the president of the American Jewish Congress and the president of the Conference of Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations. He met Martin Luther King in 1958 and became a close ally of Dr. King's, advocating for the Jewish community to actively support the civil rights struggle. So we're going to hear Rabbi Prince's speech. I think it's embedded into this. Let's see what happens. Oh, good.
I speak to you as an American Jew. As Americans, we share the profound concern of millions of people about the shame and disgrace of inequality and injustice, which makes a mockery of the great American idea. As Jews, we bring to the great demonstrations in which thousands of us proudly participate a twofold experience, one of the spirit and one of our history. In the realm of the spirit, our fathers taught us thousands of years ago that when God created man, he created him as everybody's neighbor. Neighbor is not a geographic term. It is a moral concept. It means our collective responsibility for the preservation of man's dignity and integrity. From our Jewish historic experience of 3,500 years, we say our ancient history began with slavery and the yearning for freedom. It is not merely sympathy and compassion for the black people of America that motivates us. It is, above all, a sense of complete identification and solidarity born of our own painful historic experience. When I was the rabbi of the Jewish community in Berlin under the Hitler regime, I learned many things. The most important thing that I learned in my life, and under those tragic circumstances, is that bigotry and hatred are not the most urgent problems. The most urgent, the most disgraceful, the most shameful, and the most tragic problem is silence. A great people which had created a great civilization had become a nation of silent onlookers. They remained silent in the face of hate, in the face of brutality, and in the face of mass murder. America must not become a nation of onlookers. America must not remain silent, not merely Black America, but all of America. It must speak up and act from the president down to the humblest of us, and not for the sake of the Negro, not for the sake of the black community, but for the sake of the image, the dream, the idea, and the aspiration of America itself. Our children, yours and mine, in every school across the land, every morning pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands. The time, I believe, has come to work together, for it is not enough to hope together, and it is not enough to pray together. To work together, that this children's oath will become a glorious, unshakable reality in a morally renewed and united America. Thank you. I speak to you.
So I hear those words and think they remain so relevant and so important. As I said, Rabbi Prince spoke directly before Dr. King. So first of all, any reactions to, have you heard those words before? Is this the first time you've heard him? Yeah. So any reaction to his words? And we're going to turn to some music here, obviously. Yes, meaningful today. Yes. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, his words remain so important and significant today as well. So we're going to turn to music. Obviously, music was a very important part of the march as well. There were many very significant musicians of the time. There's the first one right there, Peter, Paul, and Mary. Actually, and Bob Dylan. Well, he's not on the list, but it's his song. So Dylan, we will get to Dylan in just a second as well. He also performed at the march, sung at the march as well. But among them were many Jewish performers. Peter, of course, of Peter, Paul, and Mary, were performed, as you can see right there. We're going to listen to them in just a moment. Just a word about Peter, Paul, and Mary. I know all of you know a lot about Peter, Paul, and Mary. I'm looking for... There we go. They were part of the folk music revival of the 1960s, which of course was very significant, by the way, for us as a Jewish community as well, because out of that folk movement revival came a young lady whose name is Debbie Friedman, who is really, her roots were in the folk revival as well. So greatly impacted the Jewish community. Of course, one of the Peter, Paul, and Mary, Peter Yarrow, who of blessed memory just passed away actually this year. Some of you may know. Son of Ukrainian immigrants, often credited Judaism for his views and activities for social justice. He was an anti-war activist, saying at anti-Vietnam War protests, sang wrote the song "Light One Candle," which you've probably all sang over these last 8 days at some point or another. He wrote that as part of the Soviet Jewry, Free Soviet Jewry movement as well, and did sing it at the U.S. Capitol, by the way, and known for his many efforts for equal rights and the environment and gender equality. So we're going to listen to "Blowing in the Wind," which of course was written by Bob Dylan. It's an interesting thing to know, just because I'm a musician myself, and I'm always fascinated about the writing process. Dylan wrote this song in 10 minutes, sitting at a cafe, sitting at a seat in a cafe for 10 minutes. Wrote the whole song. Interestingly enough, just to talk about sort of the Jewish structure of what he did, he asks 9 questions in 3 sections, right? 3 questions about peace, 3 questions about war, 3 questions about freedom, which if you're familiar with some of the structures of prophetic writings, often the prophets do a very similar thing, asking questions in sets of 3s. Sometimes there's 3s and answers in 4s, but it's a very similar structure. And of course, Dylan, as we know, was Bob Zimmerman. We'll talk a little bit more about him in a moment. But the song, I think, becomes powerful because it doesn't really talk about the micro problems of the day, but really talks in a more macro sense, which makes it relevant and continues to make it a relevant song. The song, even though it doesn't talk specifically about the civil rights issues of the time, was really considered to be the anthem of the civil rights movement. Many black artists, gospel singer Mavis Staples, for one, recorded the song. She couldn't understand actually how a white man wrote something that captured the frustrations and aspirations of the black community so powerfully. Peter, Paul, and Mary had actually just released this song just 11 days before they sang it. They had just recorded it 11 days before they sang it at the march, and it was number 2 on the Billboard pop chart, just so you know, at the time that they sang this song. So I think this is them singing it. There's a little bit in this video. I'm going to have to do this. Oh, no, I can't do that. Sorry. Wait, let me go back. Peter, Paul, and Mary, where did you go? Oh. There we go. I think I'm going to have to start it and then let's see if it'll work. Nope. Okay. You're going to hear their reflections along the relationship.
And now, a group of singers who have come to help express in song what this great meeting is all about. I give you now Peter, Paul, and Mary.
I started to sing, and I had an epiphany. Looking out at this 250,000 people, and I truly believed at that moment it was possible that human beings could join together to make a positive social change.
must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? How many times must the cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
How many years must a mountain exist before it is washed to the sea?
And then all of a sudden, the lyrics are coming out, you know? And how many years will it take before people can be free? And you're thinking, wow, this is it. This is the integration of everything that you sing and you feel strongly and the moment.
There was a breakout in the thinking, a desire to say, let us think for ourselves independently. We won't be the instrument of somebody else's intent, but we will really be a different kind of people living in a different kind of society.
The answer is blowing in the wind.
The answer is blowing in the wind.
So what does that mean? The answer is blowing in the wind. It's all around us, okay? What else? Right there, if we reach for it. Comes from heaven. Ah. If the wind's too strong, you must live in my part of the valley, Porter Ranch. Okay, yeah, the wind gets too strong, it just, blows your sukkah into the pool. It gets lost in the wind. Yeah, okay. All right. In Ecclesiastes, talks about the wind, right? And just sort of this ongoing, just repetitive, over and over and over again, and just kind of keeps going and never really gets, it's not something you can really grab onto. So it could be lots of meaning. It's interesting to think about what Dylan meant when he wrote the song. We're going to actually turn to Dylan right now. Real quickly, I say I have like 15 minutes left, so I'm going to, let's see if we can get to Dylan here. Hello, let's see. This is another part of this program that I don't have a chance to do right now, but Nina Simone, who was obviously an African-American artist who sang Eretz Zavat Chalav, which is an interesting part of this whole story as well. Sam Cooke, who sang Blowing in the Wind. But here we go. Bob Dylan. Robert Allen Zimmerman, of course. Shabtai Tzvi, his Hebrew name. Born and raised in a kosher home in Minnesota. Attended religious Zionist camp. Some of you may know. Actually, I don't think is anybody here from the Jewish? I was working at the Jewish home last spring, and there was a resident there from Minnesota who went to this camp with Dylan. And has a friend who, at the end of the summer, his friend went up to Dylan and said, "Could I have your harmonica?" And Dylan gave him his harmonica. I was like, "Oh my God!" That's Dylan. Of course, you could never. It's not. Probably doesn't have his name on it. You could never prove it, but he has Dylan's harmonica. It's pretty cool. He obviously became part of the folk movement as well. Signed a management contract with Albert Grossman. I don't know if anybody knows Albert Grossman, but that's the connection between Peter, Paul, and Mary and Bob Dylan, as they both had the same management person. It was Albert Grossman who connected them. And of course, his profile rose. Some of you may remember when he walked out on the Ed Sullivan Show in May of 1963 because he was asked not to sing a song that condemned the John Birch Society. And he refused and walked out of the Ed Sullivan Show. So he was already a phenomenon, very well known when he came to the march, and he performed 2 songs there. We're going to listen to a piece of one of them. I'm not going to play the civil rights because the audio is bad. But he wrote a song called "When the Ship Comes In." Are you familiar with the song? Which he wrote after he was refused a room at a hotel because of his unkempt appearance, until Joan Baez, famously, who actually sang with him at the march in '63, vouched for his character. We'd love to know what she said. But the allegory is about vanquishing the oppressive powers that be, and was inspired by Pirate Jenny, if you're familiar with Pirate Jenny from the Threepenny Opera, that was written by Kurt Weill and Bertolt Brecht. And so at the march, Joan Baez sang this song with him. We're going to listen to his version of it. Not all of it. It's a very long song, but we'll listen to a piece. I just have to go into full screen mode to make this work. Okay. You have a choice. You can hear Peter, Paul, and Mary sing it, or Arlo Guthrie, or Bob Dylan. I think we'll have to listen to Dylan sing it. By the way, someone once described Dylan's voice as if sandpaper could sing.
Oh, the time will come up when the winds will stop and the breeze will cease to be breathing, like the stillness in the wind before the hurricane begins, the hour that the ship comes in. And the sea will split and the ships will hit, and the sands on the shoreline will be shaking, and the tide will sound and the waves will pound, and the morning will be a breaking. The fishes will laugh as they swim out of the path, and the seagulls they'll be smiling, and the rocks on the sand will proudly stand the hour that the ship comes in. And the words that are used for to get the ship confused will not be understood as the spoken, for the chains of the sea will have busted in the night and be buried at the bottom of the ocean. A song will lift as the mainsail shifts and the boat drifts onto the shoreline, and the sun will respect every face on the deck the hour that the ship comes in. And the sands will roll out a carpet of gold for your weary toes to be a-touching, and the ship's wise men will remind you once again that the whole wide world is watching.
All right, we're going to stop it there. No one's familiar with that song? No? Oh, wow. Yeah? Okay. A little bit. So this is just one of 2 songs that he sang at the march. I wanted to go from music back to one more rabbi who spoke at the march, and then wrap this little piece all up about why we talk about why music was so important, Jewish music, why the Jewish presence was so important in this movement, but in so many social justice movements in America, why Jewish voices have been so prominent over the years. This is Uri Miller, who was Uri Miller was president of the Synagogue Council of America at the time, and had also offered a prayer at the march. So I just want to.
If your neck,
that was not his prayer.
for senior women.
Let me see if we're going to get to him. No.
Hasten, neighbor, why delay? Synagogue Council of America, Rabbi Miller.
Please rise for a prayer. Our Father's God, God of the spirits of all flesh, we invoke thy blessing upon this assemblage of citizens who have gathered here to demonstrate for freedom, bread, and the dignity of man. Thou hast endowed all men equally with the right to life, to liberty, and to the pursuit of happiness. Enable us through this demonstration to sensitize all Americans, and especially those in position of power and authority, to this concept of equality. May we understand that when we deprive our fellow man of bread and dignity, we negate the Tselem Elohim, the image of God in man, and delay the fulfillment of thy kingdom. Enable us to understand that our society, the American people, is of one piece, that when any part of this society suffers, we all suffer. May we understand that he who discriminates is as morally hurt as the one discriminated against is physically hurt. That he who is prejudiced may injure the object of his prejudice, but he also degrades the society of which he is a part. Above all, we pray we become cognizant in ever-increasing measure that our religious ideals must be fulfilled in actual living experience. Our traditions must be given flesh in the form of social justice now. Freedom, pride, and dignity must not be empty words, nor even sincere ideals projected into some messianic future, but actualities expressed in our society in concrete and tangible form now. May we never forfeit our liberties, nor condone cowardice, prejudice, and self-indulgence. May we ever expand the area of human freedom in our midst, and thus serve thee and thy law of love and justice. May we demonstrate our gratitude for the blessed privilege of living under the stars and stripes by giving to bigotry no sanction, to persecution no assistance, banish hatred, pride, and arrogance from our midst, and inspire us to do justice, to love mercy, and walk humbly with thee. Hasten thou the coming of the happy day, when the message of thy prophets shall be fulfilled, when men shall break their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks, and no longer learn the art of war, when the earth shall be filled with the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. Amen.
Amen. So, as I said, this is just a little piece of a much larger presentation about Jewish voices in the work of social justice. I share this because this quote by Rabbi Heschel, because I think it speaks a lot to the power of music and the power of prayer and why our voices are so significant and important. Rabbi Heschel wrote, "Prayer is meaningless unless it is subversive, unless it seeks to overthrow and to ruin the pyramids of callousness, hatred, opportunism, and falsehoods. The liturgical movement must become a revolutionary movement, seeking to overthrow the forces that continue to destroy the promise, the hope, the vision." So what's the takeaway? I'll just share a few takeaways from this little brief presentation. Jewish musicians that participated in the civil rights movement and participated in all sorts of social justice movements here in America didn't just happen to be artists that showed up at pivotal moments in American history. Their participation reflected a deeper pattern of Jewish voices carrying forward a long tradition of music as a vehicle for moral responsibility, empathy, and solidarity. And we could say that tradition of music carrying those voices goes all the way back to the chanting of Haftarah, the voice of Isaiah, thousands of years ago. Jewish protest singers in the 60s of the civil rights movement were consciously continuing a tradition of songs of social justice inherited from their earlier Yiddish and immigrant movements. If we had done the women's suffrage movement, we would have seen some of those voices as well. So music is a moral language that crosses all sorts of boundaries, first of all. These artists remind us that songs can do what argument cannot. Music opens hearts, it builds coalitions, and sustains courage. In a fractured world, music remains one of the most powerful tools for empathy. And empathy is at the core of all of this. Music is a catalyst for solidarity, not separation. None of these artists that we looked at today, they didn't check their Jewishness at the door, but they drew on it instead, sometimes consciously, sometimes instinctively, as a source of moral clarity. Their example invites us to ask, how can our Jewish story move us toward the suffering of others today? So while not all of the musicians marched or organized, their songs became the soundtrack of a movement. They showed us that activism isn't one size fits all. Each of us has a voice, a different voice, literal or metaphorical, that can strengthen and work for justice. And perhaps the deepest takeaway of all, when Jews join their voices with others in the struggle for justice, we are not stepping outside of our tradition, we are stepping into it. And that's as true now as it was in 1963. So I want to share one last piece with you, which I wasn't going to do, but I got an email from Bill Green, who unfortunately couldn't be here this morning, but he said, you have to share this piece of music with them since I won't be there. So I'm going to listen to one more song. This is a more contemporary voice. If I can get into it. There we go. This is from 2017 by an organization called Kululam. Is anybody familiar with Kululam? So it's an Israeli organization that brings all sorts of people together, thousands of people together, and teaches them a song and the harmonies, and then they all sing it together. So they do these mass singing events that have it ranged in size to like 18,000 people in the United States and in Brazil. You can find their videos on YouTube. What you're going to see them sing is related to all of this idea of social justice is Matasyahu's song One Day, which maybe you have heard at one point or another. This was recorded in Haifa. And I just want you to notice the great diversity of voices that are joining together in the singing of this song, which is the purpose of their music is not just to sing, but to build connections and coalitions and to inspire people to come together. So